move that this House, 1, recognises the outstanding efforts of emergency services personnel and volunteers in preparing for and responding to the impacts of Tropical Cyclone Alfred in the Northern Rivers. 2, acknowledges this extreme weather event is yet another demonstration of the real and increasing impacts of the climate crisis on our communities in New South Wales. And 3, calls on the government to commit to a just transition from coal, oil and gas to renewable energy within a time frame that offers hope of meaningful outcomes whilst increasing adaptation measures across the state. Mr Speaker, we're in this dilemma that in 10 minutes' time, this motion will be suspended and then it will lapse before the next sitting. And the reason I'm very disappointed about that is because we actually have the support today of the Labor government and also the coalition. So what I'm proposing is to do a very short speech, and if I could ask my colleagues to do the same with one speaker each, if we just do a couple of minutes each, it'd be really nice to just get this through.
Here.
So thank you. Let's try for that. So, Mr Speaker, to cut to the chase, I did write this notice of motion on the heels of ex-tropical cyclone Alfred, and given the flood events that have laid waste to other communities since, it seems even more timely to speak to all 3 points. And I'm just reminding anyone who's just joined us that we're just going to have a couple of speakers so we can get this done. I want to reiterate my condolences to the family. I don't have the power to tell them what to do, but I'm trying. I repeat, our community's condolences. Look, I just want to say that what we've seen time and time again is the incredible bravery of our volunteers. And I know the Minister for Disaster Recovery is here. I'm a huge fan. And then we with Cyclone Alfred, what we saw, the difference was from 2022 is that the Reconstruction Authority is well and truly established. They've been resourced and they were able to act so quickly. It was incredible. And so we really commend that. It wasn't perfect, but each time we get better and better. But what I do want to say, I think it's super important for it. And I also before I do that, I just want to mention a letter that I received from Brigadier J.K. Lording, Commander Joint Task Group 629, who wrote to me specifically to thank me for welcoming them into the community during the response to Alfred. And I just thought that was incredibly kind. The 5th Brigade were there and they were supporting our community as they did in 2022. But I think I can't go past saying how disappointed we are at federal level to see the green lighting of the Karratha gas plant, Woodside Northwest Shelf. Mostly because that is locking us into another 70 years of unbelievable carbon emissions. And for me personally, it's the over 1 million rock art petroglyphs of the Murujuga people and the risk that faces. But in the interests of hearing from my colleagues, we are living in climate change in the Northern Rivers. I commend the emergency services and all of our combat agencies and volunteers and our community for the incredible work that they do. This is the new normal, and as we cascade through these extreme weather events and heat events, it is so important that the Reconstruction Authority is resourced and empowered to do the adaptation work that I know that the Minister wants to move to. I look forward to hearing from a couple of other speakers so we can maybe get this motion through.
Thank you. The House is considering the motion moved by the member for Ballina. I call the member for Blue Mountains.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. I thank the good member for bringing this motion to the House. You are one of the most decent people in this parliament and one of my favourite people, kind, intelligent, hard-working member. And I want to put that on the record, Mr Speaker. And the government supports this motion. I will be quick as well so that we can all say a bit. I want to acknowledge on behalf of the New South Wales Government the efforts of the many public servants and volunteers who are involved in the response to ex-tropical cyclone Alfred and, of course, the recovery in March of this year. And the damage, as we know, from the cyclone was extensive. There are many, many people to thank, but particularly I want to acknowledge the Department of Climate Change, Energy, the Environment and Water staff who worked very closely with Essential Energy to restore power when it was safe to do so, engaged with liquid fuel partners on the refuelling of stations and the coordination of information of operational sites, as well as the issuance of boil water alerts. Essential Energy had staff around the clock providing customer support packages, and the Environmental Services Functional Area team led by the New South Wales Government's preparations for potential environmental impacts. Mr. Speaker, just quickly, we know that climate change is driving more extreme weather events here in the state, and the government takes this very seriously. We have a number of plans that, if we had the full complement of time, I'd like to speak to. But more importantly, on behalf of the New South Wales Government and in thanking the member for bringing this motion, I'd like to also thank all the staff and the volunteers for their efforts. And acknowledge particularly the work of the wildlife rehabilitation sector for their response efforts as well. We take disaster response and recovery seriously, and our work to reach net zero, and I commend the motion to the House.
Thank you. I call the member for Tweed.
Mr. Speaker, once again I applaud the member for Ballina for bringing it forward. And Cyclone Alfred was a tremendous event that came through, and I for one would stand in the chamber and say many years ago I perhaps was a climate sceptic, with it all, but living through 7 major events within the Northern Rivers, and unfortunately each event gets bigger, worse, and so on. So I'd support the motion from the member of Ballina. But as we all know, over the 15-day period, the New South Wales SES volunteers responded to 7,650 incidents, received 13,969 calls for assistance, and completed 90 flood rescues. A timely reminder, if it's flooded, forget it. There was a mammoth amount of trees down across the electorate, a lot of water hindering restoration, and Reconstruction Authority have been doing a tremendous job under very difficult circumstances, because as with every natural disaster, there's the initial part, there's help offered, but often that turns to anger later on when people get very frustrated. But just to be brief, I'd like to thank the Premier, the member for Lismore, the Honourable Janelle Safford, the Minister for Emergency Services, the Honourable Jihad Dib, the Minister for Rose, Jenny Atkinson, the Minister for Homelessness, Minister for Mental Health, Rose Jackson, Minister for Penny Sharp, Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, for the support they've given. We need to do more. It is a transition. There's a massive debate going in the wider community now. There's a massive amount of pressure on the cost of living, price of electricity, but I think these natural disasters will concur more and more. Just finally, we often say the flood is a 1 in a 500 year event, but that 500 year appears to be coming down to a 1 year or 6 months and so on. So we're going to see a lot more, but it's really good to see both sides of the House working together for the betterment of the people of New South Wales.
I thank the member. I call the member for Ballina in reply.
Thank you so much. And I just want to say how much love I feel for my colleagues here today for giving me the courtesy that we can get this through, in particular the Minister for Disaster Recovery, amazing minister who is not getting to speak, and also the member for Blue Mountains for her kind words, and also because I know we all had a lot we wanted to say, but I think we all said the important things. Thank you to the member for Blue Mountains for her kind words, and also for reminding us about with Essential Energy and infrastructure, just how huge that was, and of course the Wildlife Rehabilitation Network. Thank you so much to the member for Tweed, and I was really moved to, I didn't know that because I've only known Jeff in terms of we worked together extremely well, that he was a climate sceptic, but he's lived through 7 of these events now, and so It's real, and it's very profound. And I also thank the member for I was saying member for Manly. I'm so sorry, member for Manly. It's been a big week. The member for Manly for giving way, because I know also he would have a lot to say because he's a fierce champion for climate change and adapting communities. So, thank you, my colleagues, and we'll leave it there.
I thank all members. There are occasions we do see the very best of this House and the people who inhabit it. The question is that the motion that is being debated, moved by the member for Ballina regarding ex-tropical cyclone Alfred, be agreed to. All of that opinion say aye. And contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.